How did my own son become the kind of man who ordered his father around like a servant? Why did his wife laugh like it was normal to humiliate me in my own family? And how did I make sure they learned a lesson the lawful way in front of everyone who enabled them? My name is Eugene Mercer, Gene to most people. I am 61 years old and I spent 33 years working as a facilities supervisor for the public school district. I fixed broken things. I made sure buildings stayed warm in winter and cool in summer. I kept my head down, did my job, and retired with a pension that lets me live simply. I raised my son Dylan by myself after his mother left when he was 4. I thought I did everything right. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought respect would come naturally if I just kept showing up. I was wrong. It started small. The visits to Dylan's townhouse stopped feeling like invitations and started feeling like assignments. Bring groceries. Fix the leaking faucet. Stay for dinner, but sit where Brianna tells you. Do not make too much noise. Do not correct the boy when he interrupts. Do not ask questions about money or plans or why things feel different now. Brianna is Dylan's wife, 31 years old, always dressed like she is about to take a photo, always performing for someone. She has a way of smiling that makes you feel like you are the punchline to a joke you have not heard yet. She calls me Gene in a tone that sounds friendly but feels cold. She touches Dylan's shoulder when she wants him to say something, and he always does. Their son Noah is 9. He has his grandmother's eyes, soft and searching. He watches everything. He asks questions that make the adults in the room go quiet. Questions like, why does Grandpa always stand in the kitchen? Or, why does Mom laugh when Dad talks to Grandpa like that? I love that boy. I love my son too, even when I do not like him very much. Tonight was supposed to be another family dinner. I showed up with a bag of groceries like I always do. Dylan met me at the door and took the bag without saying thank you. He walked straight to the kitchen and set it on the counter. I followed him because I did not know what else to do. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Brianna was in the living room with her friend Serena. Serena is the kind of person who films everything. She has her phone out constantly, angled like a camera crew is following her around. Tonight, she was sitting on the couch, scrolling and smiling, her phone screen glowing in the dim light. Gene, you are just in time, Brianna said loudly, like she was announcing my arrival to an audience. We are running a little behind, so maybe you could help get dinner started. It was not a question. I glanced at Dylan. He was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, watching me. He did not say anything. He just nodded toward the stove. Sure, I said quietly. What are we making? Whatever you think is best, Brianna said. She turned to Serena and lowered her voice, but not enough. He is so helpful. It is honestly amazing. Serena giggled. Her phone shifted slightly. The camera lens caught the light. I moved to the stove and started pulling things out of the grocery bag. Chicken breasts, vegetables, a box of rice. My hands moved automatically. I have cooked 1,000 meals in kitchens that were not mine. I have fixed 1,000 problems that were not technically my responsibility. I thought that was what good fathers did. Noah came into the kitchen and stood beside me. He looked up at the cutting board, then at me. Grandpa, why are you cooking? He asked. Because dinner needs to get done, buddy, I said. But it is not your house. I did not have an answer for that. Dylan stepped forward. His voice was louder than it needed to be. Noah, Grandpa is helping out, because that is what family does. Right, Dad? The way he said Dad felt like a test. Right, I said. Brianna and Serena moved closer to the kitchen doorway. I could feel them watching. I kept my eyes on the cutting board. I diced onions. I seasoned the chicken. I turned the burner on and listened to the oil start to pop in the pan. Eugene, make sure you do not burn it this time, Brianna said. Her tone was light, playful, like she was teasing, but there was an edge underneath. I will keep an eye on it, I said. Good. We have guests coming, and I do not want it to be embarrassing. Serena laughed again. The sound was sharp. I focused on the chicken. I flipped it carefully. I stirred the vegetables. I plated everything neatly and set the dishes on the counter. Perfect, Brianna said. She turned to Dylan. Your dad really knows how to take direction. Dylan smiled. It was not a kind smile. The guests arrived an hour later. Two couples I did not know well, and Pastor Owen Red, a man from the community center where Noah sometimes plays basketball. Pastor Owen is polite, soft-spoken, the kind of person who makes everyone feel comfortable. He shook my hand and thanked me for being there. We all sat down in the living room. I was given a chair near the corner, away from the main conversation. Brianna poured wine. Dylan told a story about work, something about a contract he almost closed. People laughed at the right moments. I stayed quiet. Then Dylan looked at me. Dad, can you grab the bread from the kitchen? I forgot to bring it out. It was not a request. His tone made that clear. I stood up. I walked into the kitchen. I found the bread basket and brought it back. Thanks, Dylan said. He did not look at me. Brianna leaned over to Serena and whispered something. Serena smirked and raised her phone slightly. The red recording dot was visible in the corner of the screen. I sat back down. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my face neutral. The conversation continued. Someone asked Dylan about the townhouse, whether he was thinking about upgrading. Dylan said he was working on a plan. Brianna added that they were figuring out long-term arrangements. I did not ask what that meant. Dinner was served. I ate quietly. Noah sat beside me and asked if I wanted to see his math homework later. I told him yes. He smiled. After the meal, people moved back into the living room. Brianna brought out dessert. Dylan poured more wine. The energy in the room felt loose, performative. Everyone was talking over each other. Then Dylan stood up. He looked at me with that same testing expression. Dad, I think we are out of ice. Can you go get some from the garage? I stared at him. My hands were resting on my knees. I felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the room. Dylan, there is ice in the freezer, I said calmly. I know, but I want the good stuff from the cooler in the garage. Go get it. The room went quiet. Brianna was smiling. Serena's phone was still up. I stood slowly. I walked toward the door that led to the garage. My heartbeat was loud in my ears, but my face stayed calm. I opened the door. I stepped into the cold space. I found the cooler. I opened it and saw a half-empty bag of ice. I stood there for a long moment. I breathed in the cold air. I thought about the look on Dylan's face. I thought about Brianna's smile. I thought about Noah's question. Why does Grandpa always stand in the kitchen? I picked up the bag of ice. I walked back inside. I set it on the counter. Dylan did not say thank you. I sat back down. The conversation resumed. No one acknowledged what had just happened. An hour later, people started to leave. Pastor Owen shook my hand again and said it was good to see me. I nodded. Serena hugged Brianna and said something about posting later. Dylan walked them to the door. I stood up and reached for my jacket. Leaving already? Brianna asked. Her tone was sweet. Yeah, I said. It is getting late. Well, thanks for all your help tonight, Eugene. You really kept things running smoothly. I looked at her. I looked at Dylan. I looked at Noah, who was watching me from the hallway. I did not say anything. I just walked out the door. As I stepped onto the porch, I heard Serena's voice behind me, muffled but clear. I got it all on video. The door clicked shut. I drove home in silence. The streets were empty. The dashboard lights glowed faintly, and I kept my hands steady on the wheel. My mind kept replaying the night. Dylan's voice, Brianna's laugh, the way everyone looked at me like I was part of the furniture. When I got home, I sat in my living room and stared at the old family photos on the wall. There is one of Dylan at 6 years old, holding a toy truck I bought him from a yard sale. There is another of him at 16, standing in his cap and gown after graduating high school. I am beside him in that photo, smiling, my hand on his shoulder. I thought I did everything right. Dylan's mother left when he was 4. She said she needed space. She said she could not handle the pressure. She said a lot of things, but what it came down to was this. She did not want to be a mother anymore. She did not want to be a wife. She wanted a different life, one that did not include us. So I raised him alone. I worked double shifts when I had to. I packed his lunches. I taught him how to tie his shoes and how to change a tire and how to shake hands like a man. I paid for his community college classes, even though he dropped out halfway through. I covered his first apartment deposit when he was 22 and struggling. I bailed him out when he got into a fender bender and could not afford the repair. I thought that was what love looked like. I thought if I kept showing up, kept fixing things, kept being there, he would understand what it meant to be strong and steady. But somewhere along the way, Dylan learned the wrong lesson. He learned that I would always fix it. He learned that I would always show up. He learned that love meant I had no boundaries, and Brianna learned it too. I got up and walked into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the sink. The house was quiet, too quiet. I used to like the quiet. Now it just felt empty. The next morning, I drove to the school district maintenance office. I do not work there anymore, but I still know people. I wanted to see familiar faces. I wanted to remember what it felt like to be respected. When I walked in, Jim Brady was at the front desk. He is younger than me, maybe 50, with a thick beard and a Carhartt jacket that has seen better days. He looked up and grinned. "Gene Mercer, what brings you back to the trenches?" "Just visiting," I said. "Thought I would see how things are running." "Same as always. Boilers breaking, kids jamming lockers, teachers complaining about the heat." He leaned back in his chair. "You picked a good time to retire, man. This place is falling apart." We talked for a while. He told me about a new hire who could not figure out the wiring in the old gym. I told him that I had left detailed notes in the maintenance log. He said he would check. "You were always good at that," Jim said. "Keeping track, making sure everything was documented. Half the guys here just wing it. But you made sure there was a paper trail for everything." I nodded. I did not tell him why I was really there. I just needed to hear someone say I was competent. I needed to hear someone say I was not replaceable. I left the office and drove to the diner on 4th Street. It is a small place, the kind with vinyl booths and a jukebox that has not worked in 10 years. I ordered coffee and sat near the back. 2 women were sitting in the booth behind me. I did not recognize them at first, but then I heard one of them say Brianna's name. "She is having another one of those dinner parties this weekend," the woman said. "She invited me, but I do not know if I want to go. It is always so performative." "I know," the other woman said. "And did you see her post last week? She was talking about how her father-in-law is such a help around the house, like he is staff or something." It is kind of sad, honestly. The guy just does whatever she says. He is like, I do not know, a wallet with legs. They both laughed. I sat there staring at my coffee. My hands were shaking slightly. I set the cup down, a wallet with legs. I paid for my coffee and left. I drove home slowly, my mind turning over the words. I thought about all the times I helped Dylan, all the times I bailed him out, all the times I said yes when I should have said no. I thought about the way Brianna looked at me, the way Dylan ordered me around, the way Serena filmed it all like it was entertainment. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a long moment. The sun was setting. The neighborhood was quiet. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Dylan. Dinner next Saturday. Formal. Everyone's coming. Be on time. No question mark. No, are you free? Just an expectation. I stared at the text. I thought about ignoring it. I thought about saying no. But then I thought about Noah. I thought about the way he looked at me in the kitchen. I thought about what kind of man he would grow up to be if no one taught him that respect matters. I texted back. I will be there. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I kept thinking about the look on Dylan's face when he told me to get the ice. I kept thinking about the way Brianna smiled. I got up around 2 in the morning and went into my garage. I turned on the overhead light and stood there looking at the shelves. Tools, old paint cans, boxes of paperwork I had saved over the years. I pulled down a plastic bin and opened it. Inside were folders, receipts, bank statements, a notebook I used to keep track of every loan I gave Dylan, every repair I paid for, every time I helped him out of a hole. I had not looked at this bin in years. I did not know why I kept it. Maybe I thought I would need it someday. Maybe I just could not throw it away. I flipped through the notebook. The entries went back years. $500 for rent, $800 for car repairs, $2,000 for the deposit on his first apartment. Another $1,500 when he lost his job and needed groceries. I added it up in my head. Over the years, I had given Dylan more than $30,000, not counting the things I fixed, not counting the dinners I cooked, not counting the hours I spent being his safety net. And now he ordered me around like I was staff. I closed the notebook and set it back in the bin. I turned off the light and went back inside. The next day, my sister Martha called. She is 3 years older than me, practical and sharp. She has always been protective, even when we were kids. Gene, I heard about the dinner, she said. How did you hear? Brianna posted about it. She is calling it a family celebration. She made it sound like you are the help. I did not say anything. Gene, you need to stop letting them treat you like this. I know. Do you? Because every time I talk to you, you are doing something for Dylan, and every time, he gives you nothing back, not even respect. He is my son, Martha. And you are his father. That does not mean you are his servant. I closed my eyes. I knew she was right. I had known for a long time. I am working on it, I said. Good. Because if you do not, this is only going to get worse. Disrespect does not stop on its own, Gene. It grows, and it teaches the people around you that it is okay. We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time it was a calendar invite. Family dinner night. Everyone's coming. Dress nice. 7 p.m. I stared at the screen. I thought about ignoring it. I thought about walking away. But I did not. Instead, I opened my laptop. I pulled up my email. I started looking through old messages, receipts, payment confirmations, repair invoices. I saved everything to a folder on my desktop. I labeled it carefully. I backed it up to a USB drive. Then I made a phone call. Hello. Hi. This is Eugene Mercer. I need to talk to someone about legal options. The community center smelled like floor wax and old basketballs. I was there because Noah had a sign-up event for the youth league. Dylan and Brianna were there too, standing near the refreshment table, talking to other parents. They looked like the kind of couple you see in advertisements, smiling, confident, in control. I stood off to the side, watching Noah fill out a form with a volunteer. He was focused, his tongue poking out slightly as he wrote his name in careful block letters. He looked up and waved at me. I waved back. Dylan saw me and walked over. Brianna followed a step behind, her phone in her hand. Dad, glad you made it, Dylan said. His tone was light, but there was something underneath it. Noah wanted you here. I would not miss it, I said. Brianna smiled at me. Gene, you are so sweet, always showing up for the family. There was a pause. A couple walked past us, And Brianna brightened. She raised her voice slightly, making sure they could hear. Gene is the best. He helps us out so much. I do not know what we would do without him. The couple smiled politely and kept walking. I felt something shift inside me. It was not anger. It was something colder, clearer. Dylan turned to Noah, who had finished the form and was walking toward us. Noah, make sure you thank Grandpa for coming, Dylan said. Then he added louder, and remember, Grandpa is here to support us, but he is not the one making decisions. That is my job. Understand? Noah looked confused. Okay. Brianna laughed softly. Dylan, you do not have to be so serious. But Dylan was not joking. He looked at me with that same testing expression. I did not say anything. I just smiled at Noah and told him I was proud of him. We left the community center separately. I drove home slowly, my hands gripping the wheel. I kept replaying Dylan's words. He is not the one making decisions. When I got home, I went straight to the garage. I turned on the light and stood there staring at the workbench. The plastic bin was still out from the other night. The notebook was sitting on top. I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents I had collected over the years. Copies of things I signed. Copies of things Dylan signed. Records of payments. Timelines. I had not planned to keep all of this, but I worked in facilities management for 33 years. I learned early that the best way to avoid problems was to document everything. Keep records. Keep receipts. Keep proof. Now I was glad I did. I sat down at the workbench and started organizing. I labeled new folders. I printed out bank statements. I made notes on a yellow legal pad, writing down dates and amounts and context. I worked for 2 hours. By the time I finished, I had a clear timeline, a clear picture of how much I had given, how much I had sacrificed, how much I had been taken for granted. I put everything into a manila envelope and set it on the workbench. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I made another phone call. Hart Legal, this is Lila. Hi, this is Eugene Mercer. I called last week about a consultation. Yes, Mr. Mercer. I have you on the schedule for Friday at 10. Does that still work? It does. Good. Bring any documents you think are relevant. We will go over everything. I hung up. I felt my heartbeat slow. I felt the clarity sharpen. I was not going to yell. I was not going to make threats. I was not going to lose control. I was going to use the system. I was going to use the facts. I was going to make sure that when the moment came, there would be no room for argument. The next day, Martha called again. Gene, I heard about the community center. How do you always hear about everything? Brianna posts everything online. She made it sound like Dylan put you in your place. I did not say anything. Gene, please tell me you are not just going to take this. I am not. There was a pause. What are you doing? She asked. Handling it the right way. What does that mean? It means I am not going to make a scene. I am not going to shout. I am going to make sure they understand that respect is not optional. Martha was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Good, because that boy needs to learn that actions have consequences. We talked for a few more minutes. Before we hung up, she said, Gene, whatever you are planning, make sure you are ready, because once you start, you cannot go back. I know. That night, I sat in my living room and thought about what Martha said. She was right. Once I acted, there would be no going back. Dylan would know, Brianna would know, everyone would know. But I was tired of being treated like I did not matter. I was tired of being ordered around. I was tired of watching my grandson learn that it was okay to disrespect the people who love you. I looked at the photos on the wall again. Dylan at 6. Dylan at 16. Dylan on his wedding day, smiling beside Brianna, his arm around her waist. I thought about the man I raised him to be. I thought about the man he became. And I realized that I had enabled it. I had taught him that I would always fold. I had taught him that love meant I would never say no. But love does not mean letting someone walk all over you. Love means boundaries. Love means consequences. I pulled out my phone and looked at the calendar invite again. Family dinner night, everyone's coming, 7 days away. I opened my laptop and started drafting a list. I wrote down everything I needed to do before that dinner, every call I needed to make, every document I needed to prepare, every step I needed to take. I was methodical, I was calm, I was ready. The next afternoon, I drove to the hardware store to pick up supplies for a small repair project. As I walked through the parking lot, I felt a strange sense of peace. The world around me kept moving. People were loading bags into their cars. Kids were laughing. The sun was shining. Everything felt normal, but inside, I had changed. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel. I thought about the look on Dylan's face when I walked into that dinner. I thought about the moment when he realized he had pushed too far. I started the engine and drove home. That night, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I listened to the voicemail. "Mr. Mercer, this is Lila Hart. I wanted to confirm our meeting on Friday. I have reviewed the preliminary information you sent, and I think we have a strong foundation to work with. See you then." I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Friday could not come fast enough. The bank lobby was quiet. The teller greeted me with a polite smile, and I handed her the forms I needed to update. She processed them quickly, asked me to verify a few details, and printed out a confirmation. "All set, Mr. Mercer," she said. "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, that is everything. Thank you." I walked out into the sunlight and got into my car. I sat there for a moment, holding the confirmation slip. It was a small step, but it mattered. I was taking control of things I should have controlled years ago. Next, I drove to the property manager's office. Calvin Price managed a few small properties in the area, including the duplex I owned. He was sitting at his desk when I walked in, a coffee mug in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. "Gene, good to see you," he said, standing up to shake my hand. "What brings you by?" "I need to talk about the property on Maple Street." Calvin nodded and gestured for me to sit. He pulled up the file on his computer. "Everything okay?" he asked. "I need to understand the terms of the arrangement," I said. "Who is responsible for what the notice requirements are, how payments are structured." Calvin clicked through a few screens. "The lease agreement is pretty standard. The occupant is responsible for utilities and minor maintenance. Major repairs fall to the owner. As for notice, you would need to provide 30 days written notice for any changes to the agreement." "And if the occupant is not following the terms?" Calvin looked at me. "Then you document it. You send a formal notice. If they do not comply, you follow the legal process. It is straightforward, but it has to be done by the book." I nodded. "Can you pull up the payment history?" He turned the screen toward me. I looked at the records. Payments had been inconsistent for the past year. Some months late, some months short. A few months missed entirely. "Do you have copies of these records?" I asked. "I can print them out for you." "Please." Calvin printed the documents and handed them to me. I folded them carefully and put them in my jacket pocket. "Gene, is everything okay?" he asked. "You seem focused." "Everything is fine. I'm just making sure I understand the situation." Calvin nodded slowly. "Let me know if you need anything else." I thanked him and left. Back at home, I spread the documents out on the kitchen table. Payment records, maintenance logs, repair invoices, lease agreements. I cross-referenced everything with my own notes. The picture was clear. I had been covering costs that were not mine to cover. I had been absorbing missed payments. I had been bailing Dylan out without ever holding him accountable. I sat back and stared at the papers. I thought about the way Brianna had joked about long-term arrangements. I thought about Dylan's confidence, the way he acted like he already owned everything. He did not. That night, Dylan called me. "Dad, just checking in about Saturday. You are still coming, right?" "I will be there." "Good. Brianna is really excited. She is planning a big night. Lots of people. It is going to be formal." I heard. There was a pause. Then Dylan said, "Dad, I know things have been tense lately, but I want you to know that we appreciate everything you do for us. Really." I did not say anything. "Dad?" "I heard you, Dylan." Another pause. "Okay, well, see you Saturday." He hung up. I set the phone down and looked at the documents on the table. I thought about Dylan's words. We appreciate everything you do for us. But appreciation was not the same as respect, and I was done accepting one without the other. The next day, I met with Lila Hart. Her office was small and efficient, with bookshelves lining the walls and a desk that was meticulously organized. She shook my hand and gestured for me to sit. "Mr. Mercer, thank you for coming in. Let us go over what you brought." I handed her the envelope. She opened it and started reading through the documents. She took notes as she went, occasionally asking me questions. "This is a solid foundation," she said after a few minutes. "You have clear records, clear timelines, clear evidence of financial support, and lack of reciprocity." "What are my options?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair. "You have a few. First, you can terminate any automatic payments or financial support. That is your right. Second, you can address the property arrangement. If the occupant is not meeting the terms, you can issue a formal notice. Third, you can document any instances of coercion or manipulation. If there is a pattern, that strengthens your position." "How long would this take?" "If you act now, most of the foundational steps can be completed within a week. The formal notice would take effect 30 days after delivery, but the financial changes can happen immediately." I nodded. "Let us move forward." Lila walked me through the process. She explained the paperwork. She explained the timeline. She explained what would happen and when. By the time I left her office, I had a clear plan. Over the next few days, I executed every step. I updated account access. I terminated automatic transfers. I sent formal notices through the proper channels. I documented everything. I also reached out to Martha. "Gene, you sound different," she said when I called. "I feel different." "Good. That is good. Are you ready for Saturday?" "I am." "Do you want me there?" "No. I need to do this myself." Martha was quiet for a moment. "Okay, but call me afterward. I want to know you are okay." "I will." On Friday night, I got another group text from Brianna. It was sent to everyone who was invited to the dinner. "Reminder, dinner tomorrow at 7 p.m. Dress nice. Looking forward to a wonderful evening with family and friends." At the bottom, Serena had added a camera emoji. I stared at the message. I thought about the phones that would be out. I thought about the audience that would be watching. I thought about the way Brianna and Dylan expected the night to go. They thought they were in control. They were wrong. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, going over the plan in my head. Every step, every word, every document. I was not angry. I was not nervous. I was just ready. The next morning, I got up early. I showered. I dressed in a clean shirt and slacks. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, looking at the folder of documents I would bring with me. I thought about Noah. I thought about the man he would grow up to be. I thought about what he would learn if I did nothing. And I thought about the man I wanted to be. Not the man who folded every time. Not the man who let himself be walked over. But the man who stood up, calmly and clearly, and said enough. I finished my coffee. I picked up the folder. I walked out to my car. The sun was setting as I drove toward Dylan's townhouse. The streets were busy with weekend traffic. The world kept moving, unaware of what was about to happen. I parked outside the townhouse and sat in the car for a moment. I could see lights on inside. I could hear faint music. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. I took a deep breath. I picked up the folder. I got out of the car, and I walked toward the door. I stood outside Dylan's townhouse and listened. The music was louder now, a soft jazz track playing through the speakers inside. I could hear voices, laughter, the clinking of glasses. I knocked on the door. Brianna answered. She was wearing a dress that looked expensive, her hair styled perfectly. She smiled at me like I was an old friend. "Gene, right on time. Come in, come in." I stepped inside. The living room was full of people. I recognized some of them. Pastor Owen was there, standing near the fireplace, holding a glass of wine. Serena was on the couch, her phone propped up on the coffee table, recording. A few other couples I did not know well were scattered around the room, talking and laughing. Dylan was in the kitchen, pouring drinks. He looked up when I walked in and smiled. "Dad, glad you made it. We were just getting started." I nodded. I did not say anything. I just looked around the room, taking in every face. Noah was sitting on the stairs watching the adults. He looked up at me and waved. I waved back. Brianna touched my arm. "Gene, why do not you set your things down? We are going to eat soon." I set the folder on the side table near the door. Brianna glanced at it but did not ask what it was. "Can I get you a drink?" Dylan asked from the kitchen. "Water is fine." He poured me a glass and brought it over. He handed it to me, and for a moment we stood there, looking at each other. "Thanks for coming, Dad," he said quietly. "I know things have been complicated, but this is important to us, to Brianna and me. We are trying to bring everyone together." I took the glass. I did not respond. Dylan frowned slightly, then turned back to the other guests. I stood near the wall, sipping my water, watching. Serena's phone was still recording. Pastor Owen was talking to one of the couples about a fundraiser. Brianna was laughing at something someone said. It all felt staged. After a few minutes, Brianna clapped her hands together. "All right, everyone, let us move into the dining room. Dinner is ready." People started filing into the dining room. I followed slowly, staying at the back of the group. Noah walked beside me, his small hand brushing against mine. "Grandpa, are you okay?" he asked quietly. "I am fine, buddy." "You seem different." I looked down at him. His eyes were wide and searching. "Sometimes people have to do hard things," I said, "but it is going to be okay." He nodded, though I was not sure he understood. We sat down at the table. Dylan was at the head. Brianna was to his right. I was placed near the far end, away from the center of the conversation. Noah was across from me. Brianna brought out the food. It looked like she had catered it. Everything was perfectly arranged on white platters. She set the dishes down with a flourish, making sure everyone noticed. "This looks amazing," one of the guests said. "Thank you," Brianna said, beaming. "We wanted tonight to be special." Dylan raised his glass. "Before we eat, I just want to say a few words." The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. "Thank you all for being here," Dylan said. "Family and friends mean everything to us, and tonight is about celebrating that, about celebrating the people who support us, the people who help us build the life we want." He looked at me. His smile was tight. "Dad, I know you have done a lot for us over the years, and we appreciate it. Really, but I think it is time we acknowledge that we are adults now. Brianna and I are building our own life, and we need to make sure everyone understands their role in that." There was a pause. A few people shifted uncomfortably. "So tonight, let us celebrate the future. Let us celebrate family, and let us make sure we are all on the same page." He raised his glass higher. "To family." Everyone echoed the toast. I did not raise my glass. Brianna noticed. She leaned forward slightly, her smile faltering. "Gene, are not you going to toast?" I set my water glass down. I looked at Dylan. Then I looked at Brianna. Then I looked at the rest of the table. I need to say something, I said quietly. The room went still. Dylan frowned. Dad, we are about to eat. I know, but this cannot wait. Brianna's smile disappeared entirely. Gene, this is not the time. I ignored her. I looked at Noah, who was watching me with wide eyes. Then I looked back at Dylan. I have spent the last 33 years trying to be a good father, I said. I raised you by myself. I worked double shifts. I paid for your college. I covered your rent. I bailed you out of every mistake you made. I thought that was what love looked like. Dylan opened his mouth, but I kept going. But somewhere along the way, you learned the wrong lesson. You learned that I would always fix it. You learned that you could treat me however you wanted, and I would still show up. And Brianna, you learned the same thing. Brianna stood up. Gene, I do not know what you think you are doing, but I am setting a boundary, I said calmly, because I am done being treated like a servant in my own family. Pastor Owen cleared his throat. Maybe we should... No, I said. Everyone here needs to hear this, because everyone here has watched it happen, and no one said anything. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I set it on the table. This is a payment history, I said. Over the last 10 years, I have given Dylan more than $30,000. I have covered rent. I have covered repairs. I have covered groceries. And I have never asked for a dime back. Dylan's face was red. Dad, this is not... I am not finished. I pulled out another document. This is a record of the property on Maple Street, the duplex, the one you have been living in for the past 2 years. Brianna's eyes widened. The property is in my name, I said. It has always been in my name. You have been living there under an agreement that you have not been honoring. Payments have been late. Payments have been missed, and I have covered the difference every single time. Dylan stood up. Dad, stop. This is not the time or place. You made it the time and place, I said. You invited everyone here. You wanted an audience, so now you have one. I looked at Serena. Her phone was still recording. She looked nervous. I have documented everything, I said. Every payment, every missed deadline, every time I was treated like help instead of family. I pulled out the final document. And as of yesterday, I have terminated all automatic financial support. I have sent formal notice regarding the property, and I have made it very clear that respect is not optional. The room was silent. Dylan's hands were shaking. You cannot do this. I already did. Brianna looked at Dylan, then at me. Gene, this is insane. We can work this out. We could have worked it out months ago, I said. But you chose to humiliate me instead. You chose to treat me like a servant. You chose to laugh at me in front of your friends. I looked at Pastor Owen. You saw it. You all saw it. And no one said anything. Pastor Owen looked down at his plate. He did not respond. I stood up. I am not angry. I am not here to make a scene. I am here to make sure you understand that actions have consequences, and that disrespect will not be rewarded. Dylan tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Dad, please. I am done, Dylan. I turned and walked toward the door. Noah stood up from the table. Grandpa, wait. I stopped. I looked at him. He looked scared. It is going to be okay, buddy, I said. I promise. I picked up the folder from the side table and walked out the door. Behind me, I could hear Brianna's voice, high and panicked. I could hear Dylan shouting. I could hear the scrape of chairs as people started to move. But I did not look back. I got into my car and drove away. The streetlights blurred past. My hands were steady on the wheel. For the first time in years, I felt free. I did not go home right away. I drove around the city for a while, letting the adrenaline drain out of my system. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Dylan, calls from Brianna, a voicemail from Martha asking what happened. I did not answer any of them. Eventually, I parked at a small overlook on the edge of town. The city lights spread out below me, twinkling in the dark. I sat there in the silence, my hands resting on the steering wheel. I thought about Noah's face. I thought about the way he looked at me when I walked out. I hoped he understood. I hoped someday he would see that what I did was not cruelty. It was accountability. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Martha. I answered. "Gene, what the heck happened?" I did what I needed to do. "Brianna has been posting all over social media. She is saying you ambushed them. She is saying you are trying to take everything from them. Let her say what she wants. I have the documents. I have the records. I have the truth." Martha was quiet for a moment. "Are you okay?" "I am fine." "Gene, you sound different." "I feel different." We talked for a few more minutes. She told me she was proud of me. She told me I did the right thing. She told me to call her if I needed anything. After we hung up, I sat in the car for a while longer. Then I drove home. The next morning, my phone was still blowing up. More texts from Dylan, a long, rambling email from Brianna, a message from Pastor Owen asking if we could talk. I ignored them all. Instead, I called Lila Hart. "Mr. Mercer, I heard about last night." "You heard?" "Brianna left me a voicemail. She is upset." "I imagine she is. How do you want to proceed?" "Exactly as planned. I want everything documented. I want the notices enforced. I want this done properly." "Understood. I will handle it." We talked through the next steps. She explained the timeline. She explained what to expect. She explained what Dylan and Brianna could do and what they could not do. By the time we hung up, I felt calm again. I felt in control. That afternoon, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Dylan standing on my porch. He looked disheveled. His hair was messy. His eyes were red. I opened the door. "Dad, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. You humiliated us. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I set a boundary. You ruined everything." I looked at him. He was shaking. His hands were clenched into fists. "Dylan, I gave you every chance. I gave you years of chances, and you chose to treat me like I did not matter. That is not true. It is. You ordered me around. You let Brianna mock me. You let Serena record it for entertainment. You made me feel like I was nothing." Dylan's voice cracked. "I did not mean—" "Yes, you did. You meant every word, every look, every laugh, and now you are upset because there are consequences." He stared at me. His jaw was tight. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want you to understand that respect is not optional. I want you to understand that being family does not mean you get to treat me however you want." "And what if I apologize? What if I make it right?" "Then you do it because you mean it, not because you want something from me." Dylan looked down. He did not say anything. "I love you, Dylan," I said, "but I will not let you walk all over me anymore." He looked up. His eyes were wet. "I did not know," he said quietly. "I did not know it felt like that." "Then you were not paying attention." There was a long silence. Then Dylan turned and walked away. I watched him get into his car and drive off. I closed the door and stood in the hallway for a moment. My chest felt tight, but I did not regret what I said. Over the next few days, things started to shift. Brianna stopped posting on social media. Dylan stopped calling. The messages slowed down, then stopped entirely. Martha called me every day to check in. She told me people were talking. She told me some people thought I was too harsh. She told me others thought I did the right thing. I did not care what people thought. I cared about what was true. A week later, I got a call from Calvin. "Gene, I wanted to give you an update. Dylan came by the office yesterday. He asked about the lease terms. He asked about the notice. And I explained the process. I told him the notice was valid. I told him he has 30 days to comply or vacate." How did he take it? He was upset, but he understood. I thanked Calvin and hung up. 2 days later, I got an email from Lila Hart. Mr. Mercer, Dylan's attorney, reached out. They want to negotiate. They are asking for an extension and a revised agreement. I wrote back immediately. What are the terms? She replied an hour later with the details. Dylan wanted to stay in the property. He wanted to renegotiate the payment structure. He wanted to avoid legal proceedings. I read the email twice. Then I wrote back. Tell them I will consider it, but only if the agreement includes clear terms, clear payments, clear accountability, and a clause that acknowledges the past arrangement was not honored. Lila responded quickly. I will present it. But Gene, you know they might not agree. Then they do not agree. I am not backing down. A few days later, Lila called me. They accepted. I sat down slowly. They did? Yes. Dylan signed the revised agreement this morning. Payments start next month. The terms are clear. And there is a clause acknowledging the previous arrangement. I closed my eyes. I felt the weight lift slightly. Thank you, Lila. You did this, Gene, not me. After we hung up, I sat in my living room and stared at the photos on the wall. Dylan at 6, Dylan at 16, Dylan on his wedding day. I thought about the man I wanted him to be. I thought about the man he could still become. And I thought about the lesson I had finally taught him. That night, I got a text from Noah. Grandpa, can I visit you this weekend? I smiled. I wrote back immediately. Of course. Saturday morning, Dylan brought Noah to my house. He stood on the porch, his hands in his pockets. He looked uncomfortable. Dad, It is okay, Dylan. We do not have to talk right now. He nodded. I wanted to say, I am trying. I am trying to do better. That is all I wanted. Noah ran inside and hugged me. I held him tight. Dylan watched us for a moment. Then he turned and walked back to his car. I closed the door and took Noah into the kitchen. We made pancakes together. He told me about school. He told me about basketball. He told me about a book he was reading. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Later that afternoon, I got another call. It was Pastor Owen. Gene, I wanted to apologize. For what? For not saying anything that night. For letting it happen. I saw how they treated you, and I did not speak up. That was wrong. I was quiet for a moment. Thank you, Owen. If there is anything I can do. Just keep an eye on Noah. Make sure he is okay. I will. We hung up. That evening, I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. The neighborhood was quiet. The air was cool. I thought about the last few weeks. The confrontation. The documents. The consequences. I thought about the look on Dylan's face when I walked out of that dinner. The way his hand froze. The way the room went silent. And I thought about the man I was now. Not the man who folded. Not the man who stayed quiet. But the man who stood up. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Martha. How are you holding up? I wrote back. I am good, really good. She sent back a smiley face. I set the phone down and looked out at the street. The streetlights were starting to come on, glowing softly in the dusk. I had spent years being afraid of conflict, afraid of losing my son, afraid of being alone. But I was not afraid anymore, because I finally understood that love does not mean accepting disrespect. Love means holding people accountable. Love means setting boundaries. And sometimes, love means walking away until they learn. I stood up and went inside. Noah was on the couch, watching a movie. I sat down beside him. Grandpa, are you happy? He asked. I am, buddy. Good. I like it when you are happy. I smiled. Me too. We watched the movie together, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Because I had done what I needed to do. I had stood up. I had set the boundary. I had taught the lesson, and I had done it the right way, not with anger, not with violence, but with clarity, with documentation, with the system. Dylan would remember that dinner for the rest of his life. He would remember the moment I walked out. He would remember the look on everyone's face. He would remember the silence. And maybe, just maybe, he would become the man I always hoped he could be. But even if he did not, I knew one thing for certain. I had done my part. I had taught him that respect is earned, that boundaries matter, that actions have consequences. And I had done it in front of everyone who enabled him. I looked down at Noah, who was leaning against my shoulder, his eyes heavy with sleep. I thought about the kind of man he would grow up to be, and I knew I had given him the right example. The movie ended. I turned off the television. I helped Noah up to the guest room and tucked him in. "Good night, Grandpa," he said. "Good night, buddy." I turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him sleep. Then I went to my room and lay down. I stared at the ceiling. I thought about the future. I thought about the choices I had made. I thought about the man I had become. And I realized something. I was not done yet. Because the lesson was not just for Dylan, it was for everyone. It was for Brianna. It was for Serena. It was for every person who stood by and watched and said nothing. They had all learned that silence enables cruelty, that laughter encourages disrespect, that witnesses have a responsibility. And they had learned that Gene Mercer was not the quiet, compliant man they thought he was. I was the man who kept records, the man who followed the system, the man who set boundaries and enforced them. I was the man who taught consequences, and I was proud of that. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion wash over me. For the first time in years, I slept soundly, because I knew that when I woke up, I would wake up as a man who had stood his ground, a man who had fought for respect, a man who had won.